On the coattails of an English friend of mine and a scientist, I went to the archipelago of Socotra. Looking out the wee window in the empennage of the plane, I saw multiple live volcanoes, and the hairs on the back of my neck bristled with anticipation. I was very fortunate to be one of just 5,000 visitors to visit the remote, war-torn island of Socotra. On our first night camping on the beach, I witnessed a gathering of some 50 villagers sitting in the desert sands around a fire, singing and dancing. Their instruments were few and primitive, but well played, and their voices were strong. The tunes were seemingly as timeless as the sands they sat upon. On day 2 of our week-long trek across the archipelago of Socotra, we stopped in a quaint fishing village on the northeast coast. Here, dozens of boats were brought up onto the beach, goats wandered looking for the odd weed to nibble, and sleepy fishermen napped in the shade of their boats. When I was sketching the plethora of fishing boats, the children buzzed excitedly around me and indicated that they wanted to be drawn as well. I obliged, much to the delight of their parents. Mothers dressed head to toe in black seemingly were amused, but that was a little hard to tell. Inland, or south from Carmen Bay, about 1 kilometer, we stopped at a flat stone plateau called Iriosh that looked as though it had once been a riverbed and a village at the same time. There was absolutely nobody there, no signs or fences, nothing there besides these 1,500-year-old mysterious symbols, mostly buried under a thin layer of silt. The stone floor was worn smooth and was full of primitive markings and holes, where wooden columns, I assume, for homes, may have been erected. I drew everything I saw in about 1,000 square meters that I inspected and amalgamated all of those visible markings onto this one drawing.
Salam.
I was still in the sight of Diabellon when I first caught my first glimpse of a dragon's blood tree, or Dracaena cinnabara. Not convinced that I would actually see another such specimen, I stopped our whole entourage and sat down to sketch this glorious tree, as it was for this reason that I came all the way to Socotra. On day 3, we were fortunate to meet Dr. Amel, who has taken it upon himself to raise thousands of dragon tree seedlings. The only mammals on the island are goats, bats, and orange civet cats. The goats, however, while they can survive in the harsh desert environment, are imported and have run amok on Socotra. They have eaten every last dragon blood tree seedling to the point where man has to step in. While Socotra is a sparsely populated island that is part of Yemen, it's actually situated just off the coast of Somalia in the Gulf of Aden. It is a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site, and for good reason, in that landscapes I saw here are unlike any other place in the world. We spent 4 days trekking with camels in the Wadi Dihur Canyon and skinny dipping in the multicolored ponds of the wadi. On day 5 of our trek across the magical islands of Socotra, I came across a couple of locals by themselves, one on top of each other. I stopped to chat with them as they indicated that they had something to tell me. Via sign language, they conveyed that a domestic water buffalo some 400 meters from us was in a rather pissy mood and had chased them, resulting in a turned ankle. They were kilometers away from their village. We thanked them for the heads up and changed direction to skirt around the buffalo. Well, that was a first. I adore butterflies as they display such an uninhibited sense of fashion. There are some 25 species of butterflies known on Socotra, of which just 3, surprisingly, are endemic. Almost all of the Socotran grasshoppers, crickets, and reptiles, like the flora of Socotra, are endemic. There are 3 different species of butterflies, but I saw just 2 as seen here in my paintings. As blue in nature is the most uncommon color, I think the use of blue as a descriptor is often overused. Clearly the butterflies I saw were more gray than blue, but that did not stop me either from adding my artistic point of view to this painting. I could see that my new friend Sarah, initially a shy, pale English rose of a lass, had gained color in her cheeks. Sarah was also a scientist employed in Saudi Arabia. Perhaps it was a combination of the sun and the strenuous climbing. I also noticed that after our dinners, there was an unabating wee smile on her face. I sensed that Abdul, our effervescent Somalian guide, was on the top of his game as well. On the 6th day, I was exhausted, having just summited our 4th major ridge of the Hajir mountain range in 3 days. I was delighted to hear the roar of a vintage Russian helicopter that was coming to shuttle us to the east over several dry wadis to the tiny village of Urk. In Urk, we were invited inside of one of the tiny homes that must have been built 200 years ago and was cool and beautifully detailed on the inside. Day 6. With the Urk Wadi full of water, I witnessed Socotra sunbirds making an enormous din while badgering a pair of tangerine-hued Egyptian vultures. Clearly, they were not aware that it was Valentine's Day. Opuntia stricta. This cactus species has become invasive in many countries, including Yemen, Australia, South Africa. It's also become naturalized in many other regions, especially in Africa and Asia. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello.
To get into the aircraft.
Okay. Good morning. See you soon. Thank you. Next time.
is elephant, day 6. Back to the coast. We arrived on the coast, tired and thirsty, to find the Jeep with a cooler full of cold water and local bread, then drove to the farthest eastern point of the island, Yellow Crab Beach, where we camped in beautiful white teepees. But on the way, Dr. Seuss whispered that I had to stop and draw what he called the Elephant Rock. The Socotran Archipelago, as seen from a flying fish on day 7. Much of the Socotran landscape has no roads and is only accessible by camel or boat. We witnessed this magical land as it has been for the last millennium, as gyrocopters were relatively quiet and stealthy. Riding a flying fish, day 7. We were damned fortunate to experience the thrill of a couple of gyrocopters. A Hungarian couple living in Socotra used gyrocopters to rescue people in need of medical help. The gyrocopters were super lightweight and as fast as a flying fish. Chirichai and I, with our respective pilots in the cockpit, flew side by side for miles and dive-bombed schools of dolphins just off Yellow Crab Beach. We understand Mother Earth. We all can learn from indigenous people. The Somalian fisherman taking a break from fishing was a highlight. I saw him on Bay Watch. The archipelago of Socotra is dotted with tolls, azure bays, pink sand beaches, good fishing, and a few young fishermen. And I saw them from a gyrocopter. Green rocks and pink sands of Socotra, I focused on the complexity of the petrology of the sedimentary landscape, as the colors were mind-blowing. From the gyrocopter, I sketched wildly, and later, my imagination took over. The caldera, close to Yellow Crab Beach, we buzzed over a caldera with many goats grazing. Our wee gyrocopter scared a flock of Egyptian vultures, and I imagined myself returning to paint inside of that caldera, as this I have yet to do. Raj Cuts in downtown Hadapu, day 8, the morning before the journey home. They say one can find Chinese and Indian businesses in any city the world over. I recall a trekking trip to the deep Amazon where we lived with the Hushikuchi tribe. And on the last day, we fell upon a Thai restaurant. Chirichai's jaw hit the floor, and we immediately were belly up to the table. On our final day in Socotra, we stopped in the largest town, Hadipu, some 8,545.2 population, on the north coast on the way to the airport. Their animal husbandry is the main source of income, and thus, they're tough people. Noor, the only uncovered lady. We arrived at the airport 2 hours early, as no one told us that the flight from Abu Dhabi had been delayed by 7 hours until we had sat there for 5 hours. I guess time is not so important in this land where time stands still. But that gave me the chance to get to meet a Socotran family and a practice portraiture. First, I met Noor, a 20-something London-based orthodontist, and she was traveling with her mom, dad, and 2 brothers to see her aunts and uncles living in Hadapu. While mom would not dare to do so, Noor had taken off her abaya in the airport and was the only woman I saw in Socotra without one. She agreed to let me sketch her, and in doing so, she introduced her 2 brothers. Hussein and Hassan of Hadapu. Noor's younger brothers, Hussein and Hassan, were born in Hadapu but had left Socotra as young children. They were not thrilled to return and spend most of their time on their phones enjoying the rare Wi-Fi connection. As the handsome Hussein had a degree in ornamental horticulture from Sparsholt College, he and Hassan had big plans to start a residential garden maintenance service company just outside of Oxford, England. And Noor's father was sleeping much of the time, but was delighted to know that he was also included in my sketchathon. He was the only man I had ever met who could seemingly sleep and smoke at the same time.